All right, hello and welcome to Unintended Adventures, a play podcast where we'll be diving into Dungeon World, games similar to D&D but less mechanical in nature. My name is Jeremy. I'll be your host and game master. Joining me in this first campaign is our team of adventurers. That would be Alec.
You're muted, homie.
I had such good energy too. Hello, my name is Alec from the 321 Backlog Podcast. I'll be playing Handy, a tiny goblin druid.
Hi, my name is Jake. I will be playing your human immolator.
My name is Matthew, and I am going to be the human paladin.
And I'm Shiloh, better known online as Karish, and I will be playing your Sticky Finger Bard.
Today we'll be going over character creation for this campaign. A little Q&A sesh to establish the details of our party and the world around us. You might think you know what it means to be a halfling or a druid, but we get to create these descriptions as we see fit. So let's get started with the shortest in the group, if not the shortest, the greenest, Handy, our resident goblin. You're going to be a druid.
Yes, I am.
So let's back it up a bit and talk goblins. What are goblins?
Goblins are tiny, usually forest-dwelling creatures that can be sometimes, depending on the region, seen as a nuisance or just a neutral party out in the forest. I think I'm going to be playing Handy coming from kind of a lightly tribalistic type place. What do you want to know? What specifically?
So Handy is special. Handy stands out from the crowd in both the goblin kind and everywhere else. What's different about Handy?
Pause for 1 second. Is Jeremy coming in crazy loud for anybody else? Seems like your mic is like maxed out.
I've turned it down.
I just didn't want us to go too far because it didn't come through when we did our little check.
Well, that's probably because I didn't have the diaphragm involved when I was doing my check. I was just like, "How do I sound?" And I'm like, "Hello, welcome."
Yeah, it's like you always have to do your mic checks with your character energy.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got mine. I got it turned down. Moved it back just a little.
Yeah, even that might even be good. All right, sorry.
No, that's good. So Handy is a special character. What's different about Handy?
Handy doesn't look like most of the goblins. He's close.
So what do most goblins look like?
Most goblins, again, staying pretty traditional to the RPG space, are green, kind of nasty, a little monstrous in their characteristics. Claws, sharp teeth, big bulbous heads, long extended ears pointed at the tips. Very fast and dexterous, very carnivorous. That's your standard. And Handy, it doesn't quite look like that. His hands are more like hands rather than claws. His teeth are they almost look rounded rather than pointed. He doesn't have any scars. Well, he doesn't have any scars that look quite what like you'd expect. He looks kind of good looking for a goblin in a weird sense, kind of almost halfling like rather than goblin like, but he's still green and he's still 3 foot nothing. He just looks a little off.
So he's a pretty boy.
A little bit compared to a goblin. I guess, if a non-goblin was to see Handy and really look for a moment, they wouldn't initially register as like a goblin at first. Maybe a dwarf or a halfling that maybe got into some bad stew or something. And there's a little sickly green.
So he's too good looking for goblin kind. Is that how's that playing out?
It's hard. He tries to fit in to his tribe as best he can. He kind of goes through the motions with some things. He is kind of a loner because he's been kind of ostracized by the other reindeer and wasn't brought into any goblin games. So but he still stayed with the tribe whenever possible. But it was kind of weird because the other goblins always seemed like they would treat him as if he just didn't quite fit, but he was still there since he was born, and The goblins know he's a goblin, but it just never really looked right.
So you mentioned tribes.
Yep.
What do tribes in the goblin groups look like? How are the tribes broken down?
There are two main types of goblin tribes that people will typically see, ones that favor physical prowess and physical strength, and others that are starting to favor more of a natural or nature based prowess. So ones that are kind of more shaman focused, shaman rituals and things focused. So on either side, you're both going to have a leading goblin. It can be male or female, it just kind of depends. It's more again focused on whether it's like a physical strength or maybe a more wise or naturally nature intelligence based for the other types of tribes. The one that Handy is currently in is one of the tribes that focuses more or takes more value in their connection with nature. They have a matriarch system. So there's the mother to the whole tribe. It kind of trickles down from that central figure who's been able to somehow, as a goblin, tap into magic and being able to talk with nature in a way that most other goblins can't do.
How old do goblins get?
Not very old. A goblin starts getting natural wrinkles at about 15 years old. So they're lasting. I think the oldest goblin that's ever been seen maybe made it to 40, 45, maybe. Their average lifespan is probably somewhere in the mid 30s.
Now here's the opposite end of that question. How are goblins born?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 lately, so they obviously lay eggs and have large, what are they called, broods, or what are clutches, like a clutch of eggs, right? That's like snakes and things. So yeah, they goblins are going to be laying eggs in this world, and every year there's a cycle of when that all takes place, and there's a large clutch of goblin eggs that's laid, and kind of the whole tribe, or the ones that were kind of assigned to the nurturing of the hatchlings, kind of do that as a group. So most goblins don't know their mother in the sense that like a human or a dwarf or an elf might know them. They don't know who laid them.
So they don't live all that long.
They do not.
So how old is Handy?
Handy is, I don't know if anybody wrote this down.
You're 8.
Handy is
Got him.
Handy is a whole 8 years old, which is very much an adult in the eyes of a goblin.
What's his general vibe? What's he look like?
Handy is, I have the digital character sheet literally in front of me. Ay. Handy is a whopping 3 feet tall, full stop. He weighs about 55 pounds. He is a nice olive green skin. He wears rags, whatever leathers and scraps that are gonna given out in the goblin tribe. Fully bald, fully hairless, fairly fit.
He's aerodynamic.
Very much so, very much so. And his eyes are kind of like an orangish brown, very very bright. He doesn't have like a hooked nose like his brethren, or sharp teeth. His teeth almost look like they might have been filed at one point, but there are flat spots on all of them.
How did Handy find his way into druidic magic?
It at first it kind of just came very slowly. He started noticing that he could, understand some of the animals that were nearby, passing conversations when they were livestock that he saw in nearby farms, kind of just chatting away. Or he would pick up on really hard to describe communication between like the trees and the grass and stuff like that. And he started talking to his matrons. He started learning about kind of the basics of how the tribe's mother shaman, kind of like how she uses the information she's gathered from the world and the magic that she's been able to obtain, and kind of been slowly teaching Handy some of these basic ways of like how nature, and specifically nature magic and things, kind of work. So it all kind of came suddenly, unprompted from what he could tell, kind of just naturally, and it started with like small little things here and there.
I can't help but imagine. We have this image of this very handsome goblin who has been outcast and so is like bullied, wandering out into the forest, probably piss whining about how things are going. Like, this is stupid and can't believe these other things are going on. And then scared shitless when one of the trees is like, yeah, man, I totally agree with you. Like, what?
Yeah, that was probably an interesting like hunting party where they're stalking something, and Handy's over in the corner, like, giving a set of trees like a death stare of just pure terror and confusion. And that's probably how it started, in a very inopportune moment, very confused and embarrassed time in his life to not really know what the hell's going on.
Whole new world of things to talk to. Now, what kind of things are you talking to? What's your homeland like? Where do you live?
His tribe is forest dwelling. They broke off from their greater tribe, which is pretty common when the leaders start to butt heads, and you start to see a shift in that power struggle of physical versus natural magic, and all that kind of butting heads within one tribe, and they start to split. That's pretty common. And when his split away, they found a nice little spot in a forest range. Well, was a forest anyway, near some farmlands. I think he's seen a few humans and elves and dwarves kind of working some of these farms nearby. His tribe every now and then would need to grab a sheep or something nearby if their hunting was a little slow to progress. But yeah, kind of right outside of a little farming community in some woods.
What kind of problems does your tribe run into?
As the tall folk settlement starts to get larger and have more trade and activity of them kind of like branching out in that general vicinity, it starts to scare away and move out some of what Handy's tribe would have been hunting. So they start to, because of that settlement doing well and starting to flourish and slowly expanding, it starts to make it difficult for the goblin tribe to actually do natural hunting. And the gathering is still there, but they mostly want to focus on eating meat. So that would in turn make them need to go get one of those sheep every now and then, or try to plan to maybe get a cow one day and be set for a whole winter. But that's probably the biggest struggle they have at the moment.
Is that how your group refers to everyone? They're all tall folks?
Yeah, the tall people, the tall whatever it is, because they're it's rare to have, other than like a child that might wander too far from a village. It's rare to see a non-goblin that isn't taller than any of them.
Do goblins eat children?
We try not to.
That's a fair assessment. You're a druid. That means you can shapeshift, right?
Yes.
What do you like changing into?
Oh, things that are fast, things that are even more nimble than what a goblin can handle. It tends to be things that can do things that Handy can't, like fly or swim good. So a bird every now and then is real fun, or like a fox or something that can sprint and be really fast.
What does it look like when you shapeshift?
Fully green, whatever it is, it's always still green. It could be the best looking grizzly bear, but there's not a hint of brown in there. It's still fully green fur.
Do you change in size, or are you always like a 3 foot tall thing? So it's like I'm a 3 foot bear, or a 3 foot spider, or a 3 foot cat.
No, he tries to. Actually, I guess that's a meta question for you. Would I be able to control that?
Why not? You tell me. This
All
is
right, I know, I
this is
know.
druid magic.
All right.
If you get bear size, like if you're like I turn into a giant and all of my creatures are giant, we could run with that. It'll come with consequences. But you tell me what does it
I
mean to
I think Handy would in the process of like changing, you have to kind of not only physically change but kind of mentally change yourself to kind of take on that form and kind of get your mind right to do it, and it takes a lot of focus to try to get some of those details correct as well. So he tries to strive for whatever it is he's seeing, so it usually matches the size of something he has seen in person. So if he was going off of like an adult bear, he would go into an adult bear size. But if he's seen a few cubs and been smaller because his reference was smaller, but he tries to stay accurate to the size.
I think what's probably interesting to think about is that I bet you that your transformations, the animals that you become are the prettiest out of that animal. Like that is the best looking bear I've ever seen. Like gee, oh man.
Yeah, they are good looking animals. He turned into a horse once, a little too close to one of the farms, and a group
Couldn't
of
keep the other horses off him, I know.
yeah, it was a scary time.
So which one's your favorite?
For favorite animal,
Yeah.
horses for sure.
I think we know why.
Well, that's the secondary one, but no, horses seem to travel more from the ones he's talked to. They travel more than any other animal. If he can nail down a poor choice of words, if he can talk to a bird or something for a little bit, they can rival the horses. But anyway, it's stories. They are the most traveled animals. They take the merchants to other lands and other peoples, and they talk about all these just crazy things that they've seen. And that's one of the things that Handy really enjoys.
What is the best story you've been told by a horse?
Ooh. This one time in this city that was fully made of stone and metal and glass, they had to take this carriage, but it was so big that there were like 10 other horses, and that was it.
I mean, from a horse's perspective,
That's kind of what I'm going on. The
it's a
horse were like,
pretty impressive thing.
yeah,
I once worked with 9 other horses to pull
yeah.
this thing.
Yeah, normally the horses is like a solo show, or like they might get, one other guy, but this one they had 10 horses pulling something. It was so big.
So that carriage had like 10 horsepower, which is a
Yeah,
lot. Yeah,
which is crazy.
that's so wild.
All right. So, what's your alignment?
I think it's good. Did I write that down? Oh no. Oh, look at this. Good. My alignment is good.
Why?
I think because Handy, kind of from the moment he could kind of like move around on his own and kind of like make some of his own, like once his thoughts became his own at that young age, he started to kind of immediately dislike some of the things that happened in the goblin tribes, down to eating animals and scaring villagers if they were getting too close for comfort and all that. So he always liked to help other goblins where he felt comfortable, and he always liked watching some of the tiniest of the townsfolk kind of like grow and do and learn, when watching some of the kids like play in their playing with a dog or something. He always found like the fun in like the most mundane things.
So, do you eat meat?
He has eaten meat just to kind of, if he started getting harassed or kind of like harangued by the other goblins, he would kind of, fold a little bit and kind of like reluctantly have just a tiny little bit, and then once the attention kind of moved away from him, he would, if he was able to do it, he would maybe spit it out, or not have any more, and kind of like try to blend in, or have whatever he was eating blend into like other people's plates and things.
Druids typically are pretty sensitive to nature, wildlife, plant life. What's your impression on like the expansion of modern civilizations and like the destruction of nature and the creation of big cities and large settlements? How does the druid side of it feel in regards to that?
Handy doesn't like it, but one thing he does admire about nature and some of the characteristics and things that it has going for it is it has a very advanced way to kind of adapt. We see this every day with your lawn taking back the driveway, stuff like that. So he sees in this world the nature trying to, like, in a way, fight back. He hears that dialogue that the tree is talking to itself about how to have a root crack that piece of concrete over there, or stone rather. He does like the resiliency that nature has. There is a limit to that, and he has seen what some of these city dwellers can do. But once you get to the edge of that, he does take comfort in the fact that nature does try to fight back at the edges.
I bet you that the centuries old war that the trees have been waging is probably fantastic to hear about. Go
Yes.
talking to some of those old growth guys and being like, oh, 100 years ago, there used to be a house here and I put roots in it and they had to leave.
Yep. Yep.
Are you still with your tribe?
He's still in good standing with his current tribe and all that. So he still has home, but he's trying to get out and see some of the world.
Well, something goes wrong. Maybe you're discovered for doing something. Maybe you've broken a rule in your tribe, but there is a reason you are leaving. What happened?
Probably safety. Trying to keep himself safe, but maybe telling himself that it's to try and see the world.
Safe from what?
Andy had some secrets in the tribe that got found out or exposed. So he had to leave for his own safety, because it was some of his tribe members, family, were maybe not as well adept. They maybe didn't like what they saw. He still saw them as family.
All right. Is there anything you want to add before we move on about what we need to know about Handy?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot more than I was expecting. No, I think that's it. That's a good bit.
We'll come back and go around and ask that again to see if anyone has anything that they think of as we march forward. But from here, we're going to move on to Jake, who is playing as Time, our fiery human.
Hello.
So you are an immolator. What is an immolator?
Emulator is basically a pyromancer. They use fire to create weapons and defensive items and throw it back at people.
Before we start talking about burning yourself, you're human. Where are you from?
I'm from a little farming town. He grew up on a family-owned and run farm, like a beast of burden type of farm. They raised, chickens, cows, horses, goats.
All right. So is it just you on the farm?
No, not anymore. It was like I said, it was a family farm willed to him after his parents passed away. Natural causes, just old age took them. He was alone on the farm for a while until he met a lovely lady on the on the roads. Turned out to be more than just a lady.
Okay. How long ago was it since your parents passed?
Parents passed probably about 5, 6 years.
How was the transition from family farm to your farm?
Hard because, like I say, he's doing it by himself.
Is it a large place?
It's fairly large. Pastures for horses and cows. They need some room to run.
20 acres, 100, 200? What's the scale of your place?
Probably about 80 acres.
Magical acres, fantasy
Yeah.
acres. Can't forget that. You are a human.
Yes.
Is there anything noteworthy about humans?
Not really. Not too much. Yeah, human is as human does. Nothing too special about us.
You went from farmer to firebender.
Essentially, yeah.
How did you get the fire powers?
Well, that would be he would have. He actually got them from his wife, who later on found out that she was a succubus. Kind of his own charm and resilience kind of struck her fancy, and she kind of more or less just stuck around. And she would have given him the powers as a means of protecting himself from her father.
Some stuff to unpack
Mhm.
here. What's a succubus?
Succubus is it's a demon. They typically are the ones who go out and harvest souls or magic from beings to essentially tithe over to their father, who is usually a devil or a demon lord.
Are they like killing people or making contracts, or like how do they get sold?
Contracts, or sometimes they just, depending on how, I guess, essentially strong-willed the individual is. If it's a stronger-willed person that they can kind of drain for years, then they'll make a contract with them. But if it's more of a weak-willed individual, then they just eat the soul and tithe it over.
When a succubus creates a contract, what do people get out of it?
Well, when a succubus gets at it, the succubus makes a contract with a guy. It's usually done off of as kind of a like a finalizing, almost kind of in a sense, like either initializing or finalizing a deal.
Mm-hmm.
They use their wiles to, I guess, entice Mark Corey to agree to said contract that they make with the demon or devil.
Right. What do the people usually
Uh,
get from it?
Depending on what the individual wants. Like if it's a political individual, they want power or they want to stay in power. Or if it's someone that wants, maybe someone wants to avenge somebody,
Okay.
so they'll give them like a magical boon or boost or a weapon, maybe even to accomplish said goal. And as long as they either provide them with either innate magic or substantial magical, I guess, in a sense, payment,
Do they
then they
usually transfer, like, is magical powers something that is often given as part of the contract? Like, do they make people wizards and shit?
yes, I would think that they could grant some kind of magical abilities to them of some extent.
All right. What did you want?
And I think it's part of like what I guess drew her to him was that like she was trying to entice him with all these different things, and to him it was just, no, I don't need that. I'm happy who I am.
Right.
So like she would try to get him, entice him, and to tempt him into things, and then to him it was just, it's not my thing. I mean, the only thing I guess to say she did end up tempting him with, which also was kind of the made her stay, is that he just wanted like companionship,
Mm-hmm.
like genuine companionship, just him on a farm with his dog. And
Right. Right. Did you make a contract with her?
I don't think so. I mean, he might have, like, I mean, it might have been unknowingly. He might not have known that he made some kind of contract with her.
Okay.
So she
I
probably did get one on him, but
I like that though.
I think we talked about this.
I like that. We
Well, like we talked
haven't.
about it earlier, how
Before it wasn't. You said no, there was no contract.
oh, there was no contract. Okay, well, and maybe she did because, like I said, we were saying before that because of how, I guess, how they went about it, they actually completed one of the rituals
Mm-hmm.
to her actually achieving redemption.
Right. No, but it's interesting having that. She did it on the sly, maybe this is something he's still unaware of that she has to resolve on her own. We'll see. We'll see what becomes of that.
Yeah.
She bestowed you with some powers, as you said before, to protect you from her father. So, who is the father,
Yes.
and why do you need protection from him?
Orloth.
Orloth.
Orlath. And if it got caught up, her name was Tara.
Mm-hmm. Why do you need protection from him?
Well, because he ended up like essentially achieving one of the steps to redemption. He took notice to that and essentially imprisons her in a, I guess, pocket world essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then so she kind of like in hopes of giving him some way of possibly defending himself if needed to, gives him these emulator powers to possibly either find a way of freeing her from the prison or defeating him in some way. But for the time, essentially, that's kind of like I can't hurt. I'm not totally defenseless.
Right.
I'm not just a human.
So we've talked a little bit about this offline, and essentially the point you're at right now is you're a bounty hunter for her father. You go and collect contracts or brute force your way into those overdues that need to be collected, and your wife gave you these powers to assist you in that, but also to provide you some protection from her father. How did you land this job? Was this something that you approached him in order to say, hey, I want my wife back. What can I do? And he said, well, I need, legs on ground. She's useless now. She's going to be locked up. If you want to see her, you can start doing work for me. Or did he approach you as kind of like, a little carrot on a stick saying, I know you love this lady. If you want to see her, you got to do some work for me.
Part of me was, I think, originally thinking that he went and sought him out.
Okay.
And I think I'm gonna stick with that. Yeah, I kind of like the idea that because he loves her so much that it wasn't just and almost I guess kind of almost a way to kind of like show him like that he means how much he means business about her,
Right.
that he doesn't take what was done to her lightly, that he went out and found him and said, and they kind of came to an agreement. I'll give you, what I think you said 24 hours, per contract.
So what kind of contracts are you collecting?
I guess it could range between what he hates the most, what he tries to avoid is essentially collecting the soul in its entirety.
How do you do
He
that?
tries to avoid that at killing the person.
That seems about right.
He's maybe done it a handful of times, but that's only because it's been pushed so far that he has no other choice. Like they won't. He tries to essentially like, hey, if you do this, this will satisfy the contract until X amount of time, so you can either recover or try to find a new way out of the contract.
So it turns
But
out
if you keep
Orlath is squeamish. So
Mhm.
blood, murder, all that stuff makes him super uncomfortable. Really weird for a demon lord. They're typically like torture and medieval shit, but he just happens to be squeamish, so he gets people to do his work for him.
Yeah.
Do you have like a device that you store a soul in, or is it as soon as they're murdered, essentially their soul is released from their body and it goes to the appropriate place because it's bound by contract?
It goes bound because it's bound by contract.
Okay. What did it look like when you were bestowed with these immolator powers?
I mean, it was a ceremony by firelight. She like put her hands into the coals, pulled them out, and then did whatever ritual she knew to do.
Mm-hmm.
Placed her hands on his chest, and like if you ever did see him without his clothing or breastplate and whatnot, it's essentially looks like two handprints on his chest, and then from there it just like cracks out across up around his shoulders and down to about his wrist.
Is it painful whenever you use your fire talents?
Initially, when he first was granted the abilities, it hurt a lot because it's basically almost like reopening the wounds almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would say around today, it's probably a dull, like not like a searing pain, but probably hurts. It probably still hurts a little bit.
Now, you mentioned that you have like these handprints on your chest. What does the rest of you look like? What does Time look like?
Well, he's average, average build guy, 5'11". He's got ash and ash blonde hair, like it's blonde, but it almost looks kind of speckled gray
Mm-hmm.
throughout. He's got I guess Omni Man style mustache. It's also the hair's also slicked back and fairly shaven on the sides, whereas for the breastplate over top of it and a long duster cloak with like red trimmings around it, standard pants with knee guards and greaves.
Okay. Fire's kind of hard to miss. Bursting into flames catches people off guards. Do people know what you are? You're a local farmer turned bounty hunter now. That has to stick out in some ways to the community at large.
Yeah, I feel like some people know of it, though they almost kind of think of it as that. I don't think I really actually saw him on fire.
Mm-hmm.
They almost like kind of like they don't want to believe it to an extent.
Right.
But I would imagine a handful of people actually know that. Yeah, no, he's on fire.
Do you have any like trusted confidants that are aware of what you've become and what you're doing?
Oh, that's a good question.
It doesn't have to be anything specific. You could just be like, yeah, I have a close friend who I've told this about, and that could be it. Like we don't have to have all the specifics. We can.
He probably would have told the neighboring farm about it because they would be the most likely to know. I would probably also say probably the bartender Rolf.
Well, I mean, in this type of community, your neighbors are your best friends. They're your close knit people. They're the ones that you're spending your time with. So that makes a good deal of sense.
The other thing is, Time is basically the name that he tells everybody. It's not his actual name.
Okay.
Time is just the name that he uses to tell people. Well, it's not a name that popped into his head. His real name is actually Felix. Most people around him, like his neighbors, of course, like people like close in his neighbors and whatnot, know his actual name is Felix. But a lot of people he tells them his name is Time. I guess I almost kind of showed other people from what he has to do.
So Time is a name he adopted as a result of being an immolator.
Yes.
Okay. Cover story. I like it. Whole Clark Kent thing. You get to play with fire. One of the things you get to do is create a weapon of flame. Is there a specific weapon that you like to use?
Yeah, what he grew up using, he uses a spear. He creates a spear out of fire, and because that's what he grew up on the farm using, essentially to defend his cattle
Mm-hmm.
or any other animals that were harried by creatures or things that don't need to be there. He uses it to like essentially close the distance
Mm-hmm.
between him and what was attacking his animal. So he essentially throw it, make whatever it is like step back and go in for a second to distract them for a second as he runs up and close the distance to get in closer to do his damage
Okay.
and take a more defensive position.
Does your fire, both from your body as well as your weapon, have a specific color, or are both of them different?
Near closer to the skin, and it's probably more of a blue.
Mm-hmm.
As it kind of fans out, it turns more of a red orange. His spear would almost be kind of like a white flame with kind of crest, like where the spearhead would be a line of like red.
Mm-hmm. So you're collecting contracts for a demon to spend time with your wife. What is the end goal? You just going to keep doing this forever?
No, end goal is to essentially help her achieve her redemption so that she can become an angel. And with that, hopefully take down her father, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like the time he has with her is basically almost kind of spent as like preparation or planning or coming up with places or things that might have the information that they need to move forward with the rituals.
So you mentioned that your job is mostly to collect, which often entails murder. Do you feel guilty for the work you're doing? Do you think what you're doing is wrong?
Yes, he does. They'll make you do crazy things. That's kind of how he says it. It's like killing the person is it's his last resort.
Mm-hmm.
He initially does everything in his power to not kill them, and he essentially tells Olaf that's like, hey, you can collect more and get more from a individual still alive. If they're dead, then that's it. So he kind of plays it to his essentially his greed.
But I imagine that's still a challenging thing to grapple with, the lives of others for the life of one that you care about. but it's an understandable thing to fight with. Now, you recently collected a contract that was kind of a pain in the ass. What was the collection for?
Political power, wanting to keep power, stay in power. One of the most annoying ones he has to deal with. Probably one of the more common ones.
Was this
Because
someone high up
these
on the food
individuals are
chain?
just probably not. He's working his way up, and that's kind of the point of the contract is for him to get to a higher point of points of power. So like his contract is, I'd say, wasn't a end contract. It
Mhm.
was continuation of the contract. It
Right.
was more of a what can you give? You got to pay up to keep your station.
All right. And is there anything you think we should know about time?
I feel like that's probably most of it.
Awesome. Mimi,
Hello.
our resident paladin, Mimi Ironshield.
Yes. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We have a tiny green person and the Ghost Rider. So tell
Yeah.
me about Mimi.
Mimi's real complicated and confused and misguided, but also has the best of intentions.
I mean, road to hell
In
paved
the way.
with good intentions. So
Yep.
I'm sure that'll prove interesting. What's your race?
So Mimi is a human paladin,
How old are you?
25.
What you looking like?
Mimi is completely bald, big, long, full beard, about 6 foot tall, lithe and athletic. Generally walks around in kind of a loose hung. It looks sturdy, but it looks like like a cloth tunic, if you will. But like it's a little stronger than that, maybe something weird about it.
Now, Paladin comes with a lot of dedication. Do you have a particular deity that you serve under?
Potentially, maybe not that Mimi is directly aware of.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little. How did you become a paladin?
Mimi's had a rough go of it, right? So Mimi was kind of a poor farm boy. Grew up just farming on a small plot of land, and family's land, a small little village. Really, his story begins when a nomadic troop of monks travel through his village, and he got to know them and met them, and he found them just incredibly intriguing and friendly and welcoming, and like impressionable on him. And he so the next morning, so he spent the night with them and just kind of got to know them. The next morning, as they left town, he climbed a tree and watched them walk away, and a mile or two out of town he watched bandits jump out of the tree line and slaughter the monks that he had just spent the night with before. And so that kind of messed him up. So what drove him to be a paladin was in the previous evening when he was talking to the monks, one of them told him to rid oneself of poison, one must first eliminate the source. What Mimi didn't know is that was sort of the monks' explanation of why they were nomadic and why they were traveling. But after watching them get slaughtered, Mimi interpreted it as a divine mission to rid the world of all bad people, anyone he deemed poisonous or bad to the world. And so he single mindedly dedicated himself towards that end, training and like the minimal, and he's so misguided. He spent 2 hours with this group of monks, and among a handful of intelligent kind of philosophical quips, they taught him the rudimentary basics of meditation, and he just kind of took that and ran with it, and somewhere along the way got divine inspiration, which gave him his, the powers and the skills of a paladin. I don't think he knows who that is, though. As far as he's concerned, it is just the universe. Whether or not it is the universe itself or some other deity is yet to be known.
So, whose moral code do you use to enforce this justice?
Uh, out of just the sheer ignorance and innocence of a farm boy, only his own. Essentially, what he deems bad. Generally, he's got a good heart and good intentions, so that kind of boils down to, hurting people, lying, cheating, stealing. But also, this is a thing that he sort of developed in his own mind with very little guidance or tutelage. So it is arguably subjective to an outside observer. But in his mind, like, is, anyone he deems as bad.
Are paladins common? Is this something where it's like the majority of what you would consider law enforcement are basically groups of paladins? They are the bringers of justice. Are they running the court systems and laying down the law? Like, where do paladins fit in the hierarchy of this world?
I wouldn't presume them to be common. Mimi would have no clue whatsoever. He doesn't even necessarily understand that he's a paladin, nor has he probably met many. Metagaming, I would presume, like, probably most of the commanders of a royal army or, a nation's army might be paladins. I wouldn't expect every soldier to be a paladin. I would assume that there's probably roving paladins throughout the world. But I wouldn't expect that they're like continental enforcers, if you will.
There was an incident that you had brought justice to, and the other individual in this problem basically was claiming their own deity-based moral authority. What was the issue you resolved, and how do you work against these issues when you are trying to figure out basically which god's right? Like, you served justice to someone based on your authority, superseding another person claiming their own. So what happened?
It would have just been a case where whatever that conflict developed from was just against his personal moral sensibilities. I don't think that I mean, as a farm kid growing up on the outskirts of a kingdom, he didn't much know religion or any specific deity growing up. So it's all mute to him as far as that goes. He is guided by his personal moral sensibilities that and anyone else's personal sensibilities really has no bearing on his. What he believes and knows to be true inside his heart is what he acts on. If that is opposing to someone else's belief systems, he wouldn't really consider that. If he objectively believed that what that person was doing was wrong or bad, the reason why is irrelevant.
You're on a quest. Rid the world of evil. How are you doing that? Are you just traveling town to town and being like, "A paladin here, I will bring you justice," and then just smiting whoever seems to fit the bill? Or are you joining armies that you think their cause is just?
Solely nomadic. He travels around the nation, I suppose. Like he just kind of travels. Everything he does is based upon his personal sensibilities, just on a whim. He lives off his cuff, right? So he just goes to whatever town occurs to him with no real guidance. He just follows his intuition wherever that might take him. Sometimes that would be, walking into a town and asking if there's any trouble, if anyone needs help. Sometimes that's just assaulting someone in the street in a completely unrelated altercation, because he felt like one of the parties was out of line. So he just steps in and addresses the problem himself.
Would you say that your approach is a little more prophetic in nature, where, like, are you trying to teach your your ways? Like, you
Mm.
have this traveling thing going on. Like, are you trying to spread the good word? about right and wrong. How does your quest to vanquish evil get accomplished by being a traveling nomad?
He travels and just sort of addresses conflict and problem as he can find them and seek it out. I would say that he largely just goes around looking for trouble.
So it isn't that you're trying to like rid the world of evil. You're simply trying to be a type of person that sees something, says something, does something at any given opportunity. Like you will always
With,
act
correct. With
in
complete
your proximity.
disregard of my own health, safety, security.
Do you have any family?
Had parents long time ago. They passed away when I was a teenager.
You said that you worship something, but you don't know what it is. What how do you know you worship something?
I wouldn't say that I worship something. I wouldn't call it worship in any way. There's no name, face, or personality to it. It's just instinctual. Now, if there is something behind that, Mimi wouldn't know.
But there was a moment where you felt a calling of some sort from
Yes.
something.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And I don't know what that was. I just, in the moment of watching those monks get slaughtered, I knew that I could never let that happen again. If I could stop that, if I could protect them, I would. Like that, I would never let that happen again. I'm not entirely sure how to turn that into a deity because, as far as Mimi's concerned, it is just what he feels. And now that could be divine inspiration, but he doesn't see it as that. He believes that he knows the right way to do it. He knows the right thing to do, and he just follows that instinct, regardless if it maybe makes sense.
What's your take on the gods?
Undecided. They could all be real. They could none of them be real. It's not really a consideration to Mimi.
Do you have a lot of experience with religions or other people trying to indoctrinate their own beliefs?
Not much, no. Other than a passive understanding that there's a lot of people that believe a lot of different things. I don't feel like he would really give it any mind at all. Like it's a complete mute and irrelevant part. What he knows to be right isn't hinged upon someone else's teachings. And I don't think that he would ever probably give someone the chance to convince him of one deity or the other unless it immediately appealed to his personal sensibilities. And to date, nothing has.
Is there a group or sect or cult that you have found to be irredeemable? You think that they are evil and should be purged?
Oh, dear. Likely many
What's the one that you think is the most heinous?
bandits. Just roving country road bandits, the kinds of POSs that would jump out of a tree line and murder 3 unarmed monks. Absolute worst of the worst, reprehensible. That's why he travels so much, for the hope and opportunity to stop people like that.
Are they faithless?
Are they faithless, the bandits?
What is the rub with them?
I would say that they are immoral. They are likely of all faiths. I don't know that banditry is a religious sect so much as just a lack of morals and human consideration.
So, how long have you been enlightened, so to speak, where you have been able to manifest
Powers,
your powers?
strengths. 5 years. When he started, so immediately afterwards, 15 years old, when he watched the monks get killed. And so he just immediately started training. Rocky Balboa in the mountain style, right? Just punching trees and running and hauling logs and just doing all the things he knew would make him stronger during his free time when he wasn't working for someone else's farm. When his parents passed away, they obviously lost the family farm. He became someone else's laborer, right? So, and he just worked as a farmhand and trained. And so he did that for about 5 years until divine inspiration struck, until he had achieved a point where he developed the powers of a paladin. And that, I think, just happened one night during what he sees as meditation. Because again, remember that he had a couple hours of tutelage from a handful of nomadic monks who were probably mostly just annoyed that a little kid was bugging them, right? He really, while inspired by, doesn't actually understand the teachings, didn't understand that they were pacifists and that's why they didn't defend themselves and let themselves be murdered. He doesn't understand what he's portraying. So he's really kind of an enigma, right? Because on the surface, villages see a monk walk into town, and then that monk immediately kills or assaults the first drunk, ignorant jerk in the street. I think that just probably throws a lot of people off.
With your individual justice, how do you get along with the authorities?
Just fine. There's one city, many like weeks and weeks away, seemed a little more authoritarian. He left there pretty quickly because he knew that with cops walking around assaulting people in the streets, he wasn't in a position to take on the the city authorities. So he promptly got out of town.
That's a good way to go about it. You worship something, but you don't. But you have a connection to a thing. Is there something that manifests that is a display of your connection? How do you know there's something attached to your power?
I mean, intuition there is a thing that is kind of like reoccurring throughout Mimi's life, and that he looks at this thing as if it were divine, just because of its consistent reoccurrence. And it's crazy. Like he'll see it, in the bark of a tree, just the way that a bark of a tree folds, or he'll see it in the way that some long reeded grass falls after an animal bedded down in a field over the night. He'll walk through it and he'll find this image, this I'm struggling for the word, this symbol, if you will, all over the place. And so imagine a bold angular silhouette, and within the intricate design, there's a prominent sharp angle seamlessly connected to a larger hoop, right? And adjacent to that is another distinctive sharp angle, and completing the whole thing is an intersecting slash that weaves through the whole thing. And so he just sort of sees that description, that symbol, everywhere he goes. And so he believes that that is the symbol of his deity, but he doesn't really, that's just the symbol of the universe. That's just the symbol of power, the symbol of truth.
Could you draw it if you were asked to?
Absolutely.
Do you have another way of describing it for the people like myself who lack the visual imagination to follow that description to a visual conclusion? Because you said things and it might as well have been a foreign language, because there's no picture here. So what does it look like?
There is no picture here. I mean, it looks like, it's a sharp angle connected to a larger hoop. And then directly adjacent to that is another sharp angle with a strong intersecting slash.
I need everyone listening to this right now to draw their version of this and send it in. I'm going to, in edit, post, I'm going to get us an email account. Look, Unintended Adventures Podcast @gmail.com. That's where you can send your renditions to. I want to know what this looks like.
Would you like me to draw it, or are we going to leave this
describe it again for us?
This is exciting.
Okay. Imagine a sharp angle seamlessly connected to a larger hoop. Directly adjacent to that is another larger, sharp angle with an intersecting slash that goes through it. Oh, I love it. You and Shiloh's are like very similar.
I may have forgotten what intersecting means, so I just kind of drew a random line through it. Here, I'm going to take a picture and throw this in our Discord so we can upload those onto future websites or whatever.
Ooh, okay. Would you like me to show you this thing?
Well, I think we save that for after we get other people to send theirs in. I want to.
For first listener to guess it right is our first guest. I don't know.
Listener of the night.
That's fantastic.
They'll get 1 month free on Patreon.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to share about your character before we move on?
Not really. I feel like we pretty solidly covered my motivations, my backstory. There's a lot to still explore. As stated, my character is really naive and kind of ignorant and self-guided. So there's a lot of character development yet to be had.
Let's move on to the last and final tiny person, our sticky-fingered friend, the resident thief and lockpick and all that jazz. Primrose. Rogue? Thief?
I don't remember what it's called. Something. She had a little bit of everything. Oh, it's
So
the thief.
you're a halfling.
I'm a halfling, yes.
What are halflings?
Halflings are shorter folk that they're shorter than dwarves, but I think they're taller than goblins. She specifically is probably about 3 feet tall, 3.5 feet tall. Say 3.5 so I can have some height on handy. Halflings tend to take the world as it comes. They like to be very comfortable. They are hard workers. They can be hard workers, but generally they also are people of the earth. They have a strong connection to the earth. Like you find a lot of them as farmers or raising farm animals, but smaller farm animals, because Lord knows a cow would kill one of them. But yeah, they're probably one of the fewer numbered races in this area, or at least it seems that way, because they also are kind of not hanging around bigger folk like humans and elves. It can get a little rough.
Is it that they have a smaller, population, or just that this particular location doesn't have a lot of halflings?
It's this particular location.
Are halflings self-conscious about being tiny?
Not really. They find it more annoying than anything else when they go and there's not, I don't want to say like full on accommodations, because they understand like the world's not necessarily built for them, but it is if you live in an area and bigger folk know that you live in that area, but they still don't give you step ladders or smaller tables to sit at. It's very frustrating, especially when they treat you like a child, and you're not a child, you're a full grown adult, just the height of a child. Rose has spent most of her life around taller people, so it's not, for her, it's not as a big of a deal as maybe some of those who live more out in the sticks.
Is that because it's easier to separate yourself from them because you're usually taking from them?
Pocketbook is right at, when they're walking by and it's in their back pocket, it's right there. It's a lot easier to grab.
So you appreciate being a little unseen.
Yeah, and if they think that I'm a child, then they're not going to arrest a child.
How often do you play that card?
More than she would like to admit.
What is it about halflings that makes them so good with nature? Why are they always growing stuff and having gardens?
A lot of it comes down to, it's just kind of how things have always been for them. And since they're kind of more one of the longer lived races, they don't see a rush to change how things go. And so back in the day, you had to grow stuff to survive. Like everybody had a little garden or something, or you had to know somebody who had a garden. And they just kind of like if it ain't broke, why fix it? So they just like having that connection, and it's just comfortable for them.
What's something that no halfling would be caught dead without?
I mean, that's very generalized, but
Well, it's pretty specific to halflings.
to halflings, but you have city halflings, the ones that live in the city. You have the ones,
Where do you fall? Are you a city halfling?
She considers herself one now. She did not grow up in the city. She has spent enough of her time now to meld into that culture.
So it sounds you can give 2 examples then.
Oh, dang it. I've played myself. Okay, so I think for the, actually, I'm trying not to just give like a basic answer that everyone knows from a specific major fantasy franchise is what I'm trying not to do.
Look, if you want to be tropey or basic,
wanna be
you go
tropey.
ahead.
I don't want to be a basic.
No one's gonna shame you.
I'll shame myself.
You will absolutely get shamed. Hate mail left and right.
I know. So for those who live out in like more with the earth, they would not be caught without they wouldn't be caught dead without some sort of small tool, like not kind of like a utility knife kind of thing, like what a lot of folks carry for their everyday carry kind of knife. For some folks that might maybe be more like scissors if they're more into like or shears if they raise like sheep or something, but they always have some sort of small tool because you usually you're out in the field, and if you're out in the field you never know what's going to happen, so you have to have something with you to fix something that's broken or to help out a neighbor or anything like that.
Are halflings like crafty slash master of all tinkerers? Like they can do kind of a little bit of everything type vibe?
Not specifically like that, but they do have dexterous fingers, so they are very good working with their hands. So they may not necessarily have all of the skills to be like a jack of all trades. Some of them probably like to think that they are.
Did you have one for the city folk?
City folk would not be caught dead without, I'm trying to think of how to word this, without the bare minimum needed to buy a drink for yourself and for a friend.
I mean, that's important.
It is important because obviously you have to, after a long day's work, you need to, pep yourself up with a little drink. And then if you see a friend, you want to buy them a drink, or maybe somebody in need needs a drink. And they always have to have that. They always think that's part of their nature too, is being hospitable, because they know what it's like to kind of be on the outside of things.
What were you on the outside of that led you to favoring the 5-finger discount whenever you go shopping? How did you fall into thievery?
She went into town. So she originally grew up in the farm family. She came from a very large family they didn't own a farm. They were sharecroppers that worked on other people's land. Sometimes she wasn't always needed, so she went with one of her older siblings. His name was Cosmo. He kind of had already figured out the 5-finger discount and kind of showed her, it's like, hey, look at all this bread, and we don't have like any bread. They're not going to miss one loaf. Well, whereas our family will totally appreciate just one loaf of bread for the 7 kids plus, no, 10 kids. 10 kids plus mom and dad.
Was stealing always a way to simply take care of yourself? Was it ever more than meeting basic necessities?
Yeah, that was one thing Cosmo taught her, was you don't take more than what you need or what you're going to use, because somebody else might need it, and whether that somebody else is going to buy it or do what they do. That's kind of like what her parents taught her too. Not necessarily the stealing part, but there's always going to be somebody out there who has it worse than you. So it's like, watch out for the people in your community.
That's when you were younger. You've maintained a life of thievery. What's the draw now?
Some of it is still, that's how she just survives, because that's just kind of what she knows. The other part of it, though, is like the exhilaration she gets from it. It's fun to steal things and not have anybody realize it.
What's your favorite thing to steal?
Well, I mean, it's not really her favorite thing to steal. I mean, it is, but it's more of she has to steal them when she sees them just because she wants them all. It is these little items that glass blowers make, these little crystal glass, they look like crystal but it's actually glass figurines. They're different animals, real and mystical, and sometimes there's plants and stuff. And she used to watch the glass blowers when she was younger, when they went to town, and she loved watching that. Just it seemed like magic to her, the way that whole process was and how they added colors, and they've always caught her eye. And even though they're probably not worth that much, honestly, like maybe they are, maybe they aren't, to her that's just the most beautiful thing ever, and she wants all of them. So anytime she sees those, like, she has to have, like, she's not going to steal a whole store of them obviously, but she has to have one more for her collection.
How many is your collection?
Hold on, let me roll.
How large of a dice are you rolling?
I was gonna roll D100. I'm like, no, she's not stolen that much. She's not that old. You know what, we'll do a D20. She has 12.
Which one's your favorite and what is it?
Her favorite is the first one that she ever stole, and it is a little bunny, but it's like laying down with its ears back, kind of like in a sleeping position. I guess that's how they sleep. And it's clear, except for there's a spot on the nose, and then the ears are all like a dark blue glass. And whenever she's like thinking about something really hard or just mindlessly, it's like a mindless thing, she pulls that one out, and just kind of like, there's a spot that feels really good when you rub your fingers on it, and she likes, does that while she's thinking.
Where did you steal it?
I think it was from the first glass blower that she used to watch. It was this older, not like, she probably thought he was ancient, but he was probably like maybe 50.
Were you really, was it like one of the first things you ever stole?
It wasn't one of the first things she ever stole. It was because that's outside of the, like, she obviously doesn't need that to survive. So it was one she was kind of comfortable with stealing. I think that she's been watching this glass blower for, probably years at this point, and the idea just popped in her head. It's like, you know what? Steal that. Like, that one could be mine. I mean, it's small enough. That one's been sitting there for, she's noticed it every day that she's come in. Nobody's going to miss it. Nobody wants it, obviously.
Do you think the glass blower knows that you stole it?
I don't know. I don't think she gave any thought to it.
Do you still visit him?
Yeah. Well, right now, no. She probably walks by and watches from like a distance for a little bit, but she doesn't go in like she used to when she was a kid.
Have you learned to avoid it for klepto reasons? Like, I can't go in there because I have to take another one.
No, it's more of sitting there and watching him work, like, even though it's still super fascinating to her now. Like, I think it brings back like memories of her family that she maybe doesn't necessarily want to revisit. And also it's just like, that was what I did when I was a kid. I'm a grown-up now. Like, kind of thing. Grown-ups don't just sit there and stare at other people work. That's weird. That would seem suspicious.
What's your preferred method for stealing? Do you like to sneak around? Do you like to break into people's houses when they're not there? Do you wear elaborate disguises? What's your game look like?
Well, definitely not disguises. I think she just relies on being sneaky and stealthy, and she's not like a super duper burglar. She doesn't do a lot of disguises. Doing burglar stuff, like breaking into people's houses, she probably would do that a little bit, like mostly if she was paid to do it. She's not going to, on her own, break into somebody's house to steal a piece of bread or, some food. She's usually, while the food stall people or people in the market are distracted, that's like what she does for herself. Now, if someone else is paying her to go do something, then we rely more on the stealth, rely more on, being small and quiet to get things done.
Do you work for yourself? Is it independent contracting? Is there a thieves guild that you are a part of? How are you finding work?
Independent. Like, she does her own thing. There's not really a guild. If there is a guild, she doesn't know about it, or she's not a part of it. She probably doesn't know about it, honestly. She steals enough to survive. If she wants more money, then she'll go to parts of town that she know are a little more not as reputable, where people go. Like, she's been around the town wandering for, years. So she knows, like, these are places where nice people don't go. This is where you go if you want something illegal done, or, so she knows where to go and keep her ears out for information and stuff like that.
Does anyone have incriminating information on you?
Possibly. Her brother does. Yeah, Cosmo definitely would know. But I think he'd have to incriminate himself too. So, catch 22 there. But outside of that, she's not aware of anybody. There might be the people that she's worked with, I guess, would know. So there are some people that know of her, but she's not like the most famous thief in town or anything.
Do you have a cover story? Oh yeah, I work on a farm, and that's how I make my money, to explain your existence.
No, she just doesn't get into kind of conversations with people. Like, she's just kind of going around, just enjoying life, doing, just watching people.
So you don't have any friends, or if you do, they're all less than favorable characters.
That, or she probably has some friends with people in town that don't know that she steals things. Like, oh, that's that cute little halfling that hangs around the market every Tuesday or something.
Are there rumors about what you do?
There's probably rumors. She probably hasn't heard them. Or if she has, she hasn't put much thought into them. There's probably rumors of, like, where did she come from? Oh, she's from that family of sharecroppers.
Do you get caught? Have you been caught?
She's been caught on the minor jobs. Not jobs, the minor things where she's stolen some food or something, and that's when she plays off the I'm just a young halfling. Or she hasn't had the wake up call yet where she's gotten arrested and caught on a bigger job or anything. She's not had that happen yet, which is probably why she's so cocky about it.
So how old are you?
She is 36. I'm the old one.
Are you the oldest?
I am the oldest. I think.
Oldest of 10?
No, I was saying the oldest out of our party here.
Oh, okay.
I am not the oldest. She is 7 of 10. Her mom's name was Saffron. Her dad's name was Malaric. Then there was Basil, Azalea, Clover, Dandelion, Cosmo, Rowan, Primrose, Lavender, Cedar, and Kevin. And Kevin was the favorite. Fuck Kevin.
I was definitely about to ask, if she was Borg friendly, for sure. Jesus, Discord and memes.
Is this distracting?
You
Have
said
you noticed? I have not.
You said
I
7 of
sent a
10, and I'm
GIF.
like 6 of 9.
The way they both popped
7 of
up
9, yeah.
instantly.
You could probably see I like snapped to the keyboard to try and get there quicker.
See, I'm a professional. I sent a GIF and you couldn't even tell.
What do you do in your spare time?
Everything froze now. Oh no.
You are frozen in giggle.